This is Under the Surface podcast with me, Adam Smith, and ex-player Marvin Sordell. We're on a quest with Original Penguin and Calm, the campaign against living miserably, to unearth athletes who, despite having amazing careers in the public eye, are having their own personal battles. Join us as we talk about what is happening under the surface.
On average, 125 people in the UK take their own lives every week, with 75% of all suicides in the UK being male.
Marv, back for Series 2. Big guest today. Delighted to say, kicking off Series 2. I've got his stats in front of me. Former centre-back for Leeds United, Newcastle, Real Madrid, Middlesbrough, the mighty Tottenham Hotspur and Stoke City. He also played for England on 8 occasions too. It is the one, the only Jonathan Woodgate. Woody, great to have you with us for Under the Surface. And I've got to say, I think you've travelled the furthest distance to be here today. So tell us about your journey.
It's an easy journey. Train from Darlington, 2 hours 20. Easy, get the tube straight into Oxford Circus.
And also, we offered to put a car on for him, Marvin, but he opted to take the tube. What's up, man?
I mean, it's quicker.
It is quicker, isn't it? Yeah.
It is quicker.
Yeah.
It's quicker.
Okay, let's get into it. This podcast is all about talking about your highs and your lows in your career. Of course, we want to be unearthing some of the difficult times you may have had to help other people. A lot of people going through some very difficult times at the moment, as we know. But let's start by just talking about your career. 18 years of age, making your debut for Leeds United. What was that moment like? A few nerves that day?
Yeah, really nervous. I'd say nervous even the night before the game because it's your debut. You've been told in training you're going to play.
Yeah.
And as soon as the butterflies in you'll have had it mad. The butterflies in your stomach are terrible. You can't get much sleep. Trying to eat your pre-match meal as well. It's like, but then when you get on the pitch, it comes naturally. And you know you belong in that arena. It was not Forest away, it was. I was up against Neil Shipley, remember? Big centre forward. Neil Shipley played for Crystal Palace as well. I was like, oh, God, he's going to bully me. But no, it was good. Enjoyed it.
How do you counteract the nerves, Marvin? Because you were just nodding your head in agreement there when you're playing at such a young age in front of so many people. Talk us through sort of that moment for you as well. Because you were nodding in agreement.
It was easier for me, though, because I found out I was on the bench on the day. Yeah. And to be honest, I didn't think I was going to come on. So when I got told I was coming on, there was probably about 30 seconds of nerves before I was on the pitch. And I was like, right, I'm doing this now.
Don't have time to get nervous.
Whereas I was going to ask, like, do you think it would have been easier if you found out in the pre-match meeting that you're starting and kind of just being chucked in, or do you think?
I think the reason why David O'Leary did that at the time is so you can tell your parents, because you want to watch your son play and make his debut. That was the reason why I'd done it.
Yeah.
But I'd still been really nervous. So even if they told me in the pre-match meeting, I'd have been like, I'd have probably gone white. I'd be like, oh.
We always have this with guests as well. We talk about playing against each other. You seem to remember playing against Marvin Sordell.
At Charlton. I remember he was quick.
Yeah.
I don't think he scored.
Just getting that in.
I probably didn't.
Good player, wasn't he, to be fair, wasn't he? Yeah.
Top player.
Do you remember that occasion?
Yeah. I mean, I'm slightly younger, so I remember watching him play on many occasions, and I was fortunate enough to play against some amazing defenders. I mean, probably unfortunate, actually. Yeah. But I played against some amazing defenders, and obviously right up there with all of them.
Yeah, we'll get into talking about your career and some of the players, because some of the players you played with for England, for Real Madrid, Spurs. I mean, you played with some amazing players. So we will get into that shortly. But I suppose I want to just start by talking about that Leeds team, because that was such an iconic era for Leeds fans, wasn't it? Just remind us some of the players. You had Rio in that team, Harry Kewell,
Ferdinand,
Viduka,
Boyer, Viduka, Alan Smith, with a real top team, but all young. Yeah. So it was like playing with your mates.
What was it like? What was the team spirit like? Was it?
Yeah, it was every single day. You're coming into training and you're having a laugh as well as playing. I think that showed on the pitch as well. We loved the fans, they loved us, and we found a rapport with the fans, and they could relate to us because we come through the youth system, most of us, and then got to play for the top team.
Did you have a highlight from your time at Leeds?
Leeds, I'd say debut. One regret about
so many players say that, don't they?
We didn't win any trophies there. Yeah. So when you look at it, okay, it was a good team, but to be a great team, you need to win trophies, and we didn't. Yeah. At that time, when we had to sell, we sold Rio to Man United. I went, Harry Kewell went, and then you could see from that point it wasn't going to be the same. I didn't even want to leave at the time. I was like devastated.
Were you?
Yeah. Because it's the only thing I knew. I loved the club. Yeah. I came through the youth system there when I was 14-year-old. So to get all the way up and to be told you've got to go, or the club's going to go bust, I didn't want to do it.
It's interesting you're saying that you could almost tell that was the sort of a bit of a decline. So how difficult moments were that when you're selling? I mean, you're talking about elite players like yourself, Rio Ferdinand, because the fans must have been devastated. But how was that as a player at the time?
Yeah, tough, because you want to be successful in your career, so you want to play with the best players, and the best players can get you to another level. So that was the biggest thing. But they all started going. Robbie Fowler went, Robbie Keane went. It's like, and they ended up getting relegated, didn't they?
Yeah. It's amazing.
Everyone just got back in the Premier League 2 years ago in the Bielsa.
Yeah, it's amazing the names that he talks about there, some of those players. I imagine you played against some of those players, but just unbelievable team that, wasn't it?
I mean, again, I was probably quite young at the time when you guys were at your pinnacle, and just remembering Leeds, and Leeds are a giant of football in this country, so it must have been incredible to be a part of that and to be able to help take them, and be a part of such a strong dressing room as well.
The journey as well, from when you get to the UEFA Cup semi-final, the Champions League semi-final, and then it just goes downhill from there. I'm over the moon they didn't get relegated.
You are, yeah.
Oh, I was watching it. I was like watching the scores.
Recently, epic last day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did you see that happening? Just talking about
Leeds. I thought Leeds would have stayed up.
Did you?
I thought they would have stayed up. Even if they'd have kept Bielsa, I thought they'd have stayed up.
Yeah.
Okay, it went down to the last day, but they've lost a lot of players this season, haven't they?
Incredible last day. You then moved to Newcastle. So tell us about how that sort of came about and your mindset at that period of time in your career.
Well, I didn't want to go, but Bobby Robson being a top manager, and I was thinking to myself, Bobby Robson, unbelievable manager. Alan Shearer, legend of a player. Gary Speed, they had a young team as well.
Yeah.
So I just thought, let's do it, even though I didn't want to go.
Really? And that's more that you didn't want to leave Leeds rather than
I didn't
go to Newcastle.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave Leeds.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing for me. I was happy at the club, I was settled, I was playing with good players.
Did you have a best player that you played with in your career? If that's a single one, I would probably jumping forward a bit.
You'd probably say Zidane.
So,
You'd probably say Zidane.
That's not a bad one, is it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just on the training pitch, you can't get the ball off him. He's so graceful in his movement. He's just an ultimate player, but a good man as well.
Yeah.
Humble.
Is he? What's he like off
just humble, just really down to earth, nice man.
Looking at your career, obviously we had so many highs. We're going to talk about you winning the League Cup for Tottenham as a proud day for me. I was at the game behind the goal, but injuries was a big part that a lot of people talk about with your game. So I just wanted to ask you about the first injury you had and how that was mentally for you, because I bet you're annoyed with people talking about your injuries when they reflect on your career with everything that you did achieve. But it is something that people talk about with you, isn't it? So how difficult were those moments when you had injuries?
When you have injuries, as a footballer, there's nothing worse, because all you want to do is play football. And it seemed to be like a snowball effect with me. I'd get one injury, then that'd lead to another one. But it all come down to my back. I had an unstable segment in my back. So even though I wasn't getting a lot of pain in my back, it was making me pull my hamstrings and my quads. And I had a lot of groin injuries. Yeah. But it was tough. It was tough to take, to be honest with you. Especially knowing that you could give a lot more. And when you look back on your career, okay, it was okay. But it could have been so much better if I didn't have so many injuries.
Do you think you played a lot of games where you weren't 100%?
Yeah, hands down, most of them probably.
Really?
I used to sometimes try and trick my mind. If I felt my hamstring in a training session, I'd be like, no, that didn't happen.
Really?
That wasn't, because I wanted to play that much.
Wow.
So I was trying to work my mind to say, you didn't feel that.
Even though your body's telling you can't play?
Yeah,
wow.
I'd try and play.
It's interesting because you hear the other side of it, players, if they've had a slight tweak, might go off as a precaution, but you were the opposite. You never wanted to go off, even if you were injured.
I wanted to stay on, even if, so at Middlesbrough, I think it was QPR. Yeah. It was Ben Gibson's debut. Oh, I went, oh God. I went, Ben, I said, you have to cover me here. I've pulled my calf.
This is during the game, you're saying?
During the game.
Wow.
So I stayed on until half time.
But how's your performance at that point?
I couldn't handle the fans' groan of, oh, not again.
Really?
Like, oh. I'd be walking off and it's not a nice feeling.
So if you tweaked your hammy then, for example, in the 35th minute, you would want to stay on to get substituted at half time because you wouldn't want to hear the fans groan? Yeah. Really?
Yeah. Wow. What got you to that point? Was it just an accumulation of
do you know what, right? I was embarrassed. Because my body kept on letting me down. That was the biggest thing, the embarrassment of coming off. Oh, him again.
Really?
That was a real one for me.
So how many times would you say that happened in your career that you were playing through the pain barrier or that you'd stop yourself going off because you'd rather wait till half-time or full-time?
My last game for Madrid, against Arsenal in the Champions League, against Henry.
Massive game.
Yeah, so the derby, I think it was the last 16 or something. So I remember then, it was towards the end of the session, I got a slight hamstring strain at the back.
So it's not gone, it's a strain.
It's just a little...
Yeah.
I'm trying to kid myself, but I'm thinking to myself, this is a huge game. You want to play in this game. 10 minutes, and hamstring just went.
Really?
That was the worst walk in the world. Because I'd been injured that many times at Madrid. Yeah. I was running out of chances, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Because it's not going to keep you forever, either, if you keep on getting injured.
So that was your mindset in terms of wanting to play because you felt you had to play and you'd been injured a few times before and you simply had to start that game, even though your body was telling you shouldn't have done.
Yeah. That's what I was.
It's pressure you put on yourself.
Yeah, it's pressure you put on yourself to try and do it.
And you said the walk, you said.
Oh, it's like the walk.
You mean the walk of when you had to come off?
It's like the walk of shame, isn't it?
Really?
You walk off and you've got like 90,000 and you just want the ground to swallow you up.
Wow. Can you relate to that, Marvin, with injuries? I know you had injuries with your career in terms of the mindset that Jonathan's talking about of playing through the pain barriers. That's something that you did a lot, or were you the more cautious end of injuries? How did you approach injuries that you had?
Probably similar, to be honest. And I think, but from a different perspective, because a lot of the times when I had injuries were just unfortunately at bad times in terms of I was maybe just on the verge of being out of the team or maybe just got back in the team and you just think, I can't not play because if I don't play, then what's going to happen? Where is, which direction is my career going to take? And if you come out, it could just be one game and then that's it. Your opportunity's gone, someone's come in and they're flying and then it could take months to, get back in the team or to rebuild trust in you. As you said, one of the biggest things is that you don't want people to look at you like they can't rely on you. That's the biggest thing in football.
Trust, isn't it? Yeah. Can I trust him?
And in terms of the day-to-day as well, so many players talk about the psychological side of it when all your teammates, I imagine a first-team dressing room, you've got the camaraderie, the banter, the friendship group. I imagine it's an amazing workplace to be at. When you're injured, your day-to-day, is it a case of you're just in the gym on your own with the physio? Is that hard to take as well?
That's the most difficult part when they all go out to training and you're going in the gym and doing stuff. I remember in Spain, so I didn't know anything personally. I knew David Beckham and Michael Owen briefly, but they're all walking down to the training pitch and then you go straight into the gym. So I had to try and build relationships up with them.
Wow.
But I couldn't do it when I was on the pitch. Yeah. So I had to just get to try and learn the language. I had to try to get to know them, make them laugh, make mistakes, speaking the language, just to try and fit in.
Yeah. Was that similar to you in terms of the day-to-day when you were injured as well? Was that a particularly tough period of your career?
I mean, that's the most difficult thing in football is not playing football for any player. Everyone will say the same. All you want to be doing is being out on that pitch playing, and especially when you're in a new environment and then a new team, it's hard to integrate yourself when you're not playing.
Yeah, it's tough.
Because the first thing people do is judge you on how you play.
Yeah.
And so you want to go out and show, this is why I've come here because I can play as well. So how was that? Like, how was it trying to integrate into the group with that?
That was tough. But like I said, the most important thing for me to do then was to try and learn the language and get to know the players. But that was, I'd say, the most difficult part of my career.
Your whole carear? Integrating?
In Madrid, definitely. Because I was injured for a year. Yeah. And it was tough. And I had thigh operation. I had Botox in it. I had everything. I was trying to do everything to try and get fit. It was difficult because I was there on my own as well. 23-year-old over in Spain.
I was going to ask about that.
Father back in Middlesbrough. Yeah. So I was on my own quite a lot.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that. The age
that was difficult.
The age that you're at, 23 years of age.
Yeah, I'm
obviously
still
not a senior player. You're there on your own. So even if you weren't injured, that brings to it a lot of challenges, I imagine, as well.
It does, yeah. You've got to... I was, at the time, looking back, I was obviously devastated that I wasn't playing for the biggest team in the world. But I had a mentality where that I'd always think I can get back, no matter what it was, even if I kept on... Because I kept on pulling my thigh when I was there as well. That's what kept on happening. It kept on reoccurring. So I thought to myself, I can get through it. But it were difficult times.
And what was your relationship like with the fans there as well? Because obviously we know Real Madrid fans, very passionate fan base. Yeah. Obviously they're used to seeing so much success. So what was that like? I imagine that must have been quite difficult. They didn't see you play for so long, and obviously you're so desperate to get out there. So how tricky was that?
Well, I waited a year.
Yeah.
And then I scored an own goal, didn't I, and got sent off. Yeah. The whole stadium stood up and clapped me because they'd heard me give interviews and heard how I try to learn the language and I've tried to fit in. So I think they appreciated it. But I just wish it could have gone a bit better.
Yeah, let's just, if we don't mind, just dwell on that debut, the red card and the own goal. After everything you've been through, you're learning the language, you're training so hard to get out there with your teammates having been injured. How tough was that for you, that debut?
It was difficult, but I remember afterwards, just I think I was talking to one of the physios, and Ronaldo came over. He said, "How are you?" I said, "Well, obviously gutted." He said, "Well, you're back fit." He said,
"Great point. Yeah,
you're back fit.
Yeah,
don't worry about it. I think we won 4-1 in the end.
Yeah, which is such a valid point, though, isn't it?
It's a valid point. Yeah. You're back fit, and he had his injury problems, didn't he, when he was at AC Milan and Inter Milan. He had a lot of, so he knew how I was feeling.
Yeah. How important is that to have that? I mean, some of the names we're mentioning here, but like Zidane, Ronaldo, just some of the players that you played with.
You keep dropping them in
the I'll keep dropping. Drop one into the next answer if you can as well. But having some of those players, like I'm sure you're dropping another in, but if Ronaldo puts his arm around you and says that must.
Like someone who's been there and done it.
Yeah.
And he knows what I was going through because he saw me most days putting the work in and trying to get back fit.
How big of a thing was it to have the fans clap you off though? Especially after going back in hindsight where you get those groans and it feels like, the world's on top of you, whereas they're supporting you, yeah?
They did at that time, but then when I came off against Arsenal, it was a bit like, oh, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
And I was like, oh, God.
Because they'd seen it before, you mean?
Because they'd seen it before and I kept on getting injured.
Yeah.
That was the thing. And they thought they'd wasted a lot of money.
Yeah. What were the teammates like in that period when you had got to know them? You mentioned Ronaldo there, just something. I mean, are you there? David Beckham, Michael Owen, obviously, two lads that you knew very well.
All I can say about the players is good people.
Yeah.
Real good people. Just go in, do the work, go home. There's no antics, no big time Charlies. They just got on with the work. But the ability they have on the football pitch is on another level.
Yeah. Go on, give us some of the names. We've heard a couple. Give us some of the starting 11 then, because I remember that team so well.
Roberto Carlos.
Yeah, Figo was there as well.
Figo, Zidane.
Bex.
Beckham, Guti was some player.
Yeah, a lot of people say that. Is it underrated,
awesome.
Do you think, Guti?
Awesome.
Really?
Left foot. Brilliant player.
Really?
One of the best.
Wow. It's not a bad team, this, Marv, is it?
Yeah.
Do you feel that you are underrated, Jonathan? Because I've spoken to so many ex-players that when we speak about best players or players technically gifted, or people would describe you as a Rolls Royce of a centre-back, and in that era there wasn't perhaps as many English sort of ball-playing centre-backs. Did you feel that you were underrated or underappreciated in your career?
No, I wouldn't really know, to be honest, because I don't ask people's views on it. I don't have a clue if I was underrated or not, or overrated. Maybe I could have been overrated. Or a fan, I'll tell you over there in the corner.
All behind the camera. I know he's a massive fan of yours. But do you know what I mean? It was a time when a lot of, we see now people are so good with their feet. It seemed like Jonathan was ahead of his time in that sense. He was a very ball-playing, technically gifted centre-back, wasn't he?
Football's changed a lot. And you probably feel like you may have missed the boat maybe in times as well, where even, the outlook and the way we treat injuries has changed so much. So that may have been a difference as well, do you think? Would you, it's hard to say, and I find it difficult to answer the question as well sometimes, but do you ever look back in your career, those high periods, and look back and think, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have changed this?
You wish you could change different things. But if I look back now and thought, bloody hell, my mentality would be all over the place, because there's so many things that didn't go right. Or like you say, your body lets you down in certain situations. If I went back and thought, I wish I'd done that, man, my head would go crazy.
Interesting though, but you look back on the moments, like you said, the injuries, the downsides, when you obviously had such an amazing career. Does your mind take you to the dark places before the good places?
It should have been a lot better than it was. That's the big thing.
You said that a few times now. Is that something that you think about a lot then?
That's the biggest thing, yeah. Like when I think about Madrid, I'm thinking, oh my God.
Yeah.
But body let you down.
Do you put that solely down to injuries? Just body, injuries. Nothing you could have done?
Yeah, because I know for a fact I could have played there.
Yeah.
And I could have been a success there.
Yeah.
But injuries, absolute killer.
So how do you look back on your time at Real Madrid, Jonathan, would you say?
Oh, it was a failure. That's the one word I'd definitely use. When you sign for probably the biggest team in the world, you want to go there and make a difference. Well, I didn't, to be honest with you. Didn't win any trophies there. Hardly played. So that's how I'd put it down. It was a failure. When I look back on my career,
that
it gets to me.
Does it? That particular period of your career, more than anything else?
More than anything.
Really?
Because you're on the biggest stage.
Yeah.
And your body let you down.
Simple as that. The injuries just killed you. The way you look back at something. Did you not look back at any point and think, I've signed for, in your words, the biggest club in the world, Real Madrid, putting on the iconic white shirt? There must be a sense of pride that you look back at that. For you and your family at the time, it must have been incredible.
Yeah, pride, brilliant, yeah. But when you go to one of them clubs, then you want to go again and win things and play. I didn't play enough.
Is it that what if feeling?
What if?
Madrid? Yeah.
Exactly. You see him winning Champions League. I think the year I left, they won the Liga.
Wow.
And I
remember watching. Because obviously it's your teammates. You just said you got with them well. So
yeah, I'm not going to lie. I was absolutely devastated.
Were you?
Because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I wasn't there. But what I did, I got back fit eventually.
Yeah.
Because I had the season for Middlesbrough where I played really well and got back in the England squad. So one thing with me as a player, I never give up. I always kept on going. I always looked to try and find something within, I'd say.
So you said, what if? So I'm going to ask that question. What do you think would have happened had you not had injuries at Real Madrid? When you came back and you got over that, if you were injury-free, do you think your career would have taken a completely different turn?
Yeah, definitely. I'd have won the Ligas, I'd have won probably Champions League, but it's what ifs, isn't it? Ifs and buts. You can't turn back time. That's how I look at it, really. And when you dwell about it, I don't really like it. On the train, I'll be devastated because I'm probably thinking about it.
Will you? Sorry, we're bringing this up. It's amazing, isn't it? So many players think back to what they don't win, not what they have won. It's a mindset that I think we all have. It's so much easier to remember the bad times than the good times, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested because even though it was something that's completely out of your hands, I mean, does that make it more frustrating, do you think? The fact that you couldn't control it?
No, I couldn't control it. And I tried everything to try and get fit. In the end, I even went back to Leeds and used my old physio, Dave Hancock.
Did you? Just because you wanted to just try absolutely everything to get back?
Everything.
Yeah.
And he got me back fit.
Yeah.
From that period. Because I think in Madrid, I was doing like 1,000 sit-ups a day. Like trying to strengthen all my core and my back. And I'm thinking to myself, 1,000 sit-ups a day? But
must be a good ad for
get a six-pack. I had a six-pack. Cheese grater six-pack.
Got any photos? We'll put it on the video edit of this. 1,000 sit-ups a day.
Every single day.
Every single day, wow. I believe you. The way you looked at me, you said that was 1,000 every single day. I don't think I've ever done 1,000 in my life.
How's that going to get you fit? Doing 1,000 sit-ups? So if anything, it's going to cause more instability in your back. Have a big six-pack, but what's happening with your back?
It's a really good point. I
went to use Dave Hancock, who was the physio at Leeds United, and they let me use the facilities. So I got back fit. You
said you tried everything. I just wanted to elaborate on that in terms of what you tried. Is this physio? Is this recovery? Is this ice baths? Just talk us through.
Physios, Botox, injections. Then I had to get the operation in the end. There was one time they brought this fella over. He said he could get me fit. He wrote to the club. I said I can get him fit, and he put some grass on my leg. He boiled some grass in a pan, put it on my leg, wrapped in cling film. I'm thinking to myself, what? I'm at Real Madrid again. I'm going from grass on me. Do you know what I mean?
Who's this fella?
I don't even know. He looked like Captain Birdseye.
So you're basically saying to me you got that desperate, your situation with injuries, that some random bloke who looked like Captain Birdseye rang you up, said, I'm going to boil some grass
and said, I can do this.
Put it around your leg. And you said yes out of desperation.
Try anything.
Any other strange stories like that? Is that the one?
That's the peak.
If they get strange, then
anything you can relate to with that, Marv?
Not in the slightest.
With injuries? No.
But then I'm thinking to myself, in my mind thinking, do they think it's all in my mind? Do they think I'm not really that bad? If something doesn't show on the scan, do you know what I mean? If you get a scan and nothing's showing, they're like, well, you're all right. And I think to myself, well, I'm not. Because I can't run. I can't do different things. Then I'm thinking psychologically, do they think I'm deluded or and this is why I try in this?
Well,
there's self-doubt creeping in terms of like the way you look at yourself and your body.
It's not that, it's what's his opinion of me?
Right.
What do they think of me?
And how important is that for you? Was that a big thing?
Huge.
Yeah.
Because I'm there on my own, aren't I?
Yeah.
So that was a big thing for me. What does he think of me? Does he think I'm soft? Does he think I'm lying? Because I genuinely want to get fit here. And I'm not getting fit.
Is these stories, have you had anything like these with not yourself maybe, but teammates that go to any lengths? Because that's quite an extreme length to go to overcome injury.
Players will go to any length to get back on the pitch. Yeah. No, they'll push themselves to the limit. You know, seeing people with as bad injuries as you can imagine, and they'll find a way to get back as soon as possible. And it's normally the physio or coaches who are holding them back because, you know, one injury leads to 3 injuries because your body's not ready in general. Not just maybe it might be a knee. It's like my knee feels okay, but the rest of your body's not up to speed. You're trying to push it too far, then you get quad, hamstring, calf in quick succession, and all of a sudden, you know, another couple of weeks where you're taking your time leads to a long stretch out.
That's a big thing. I'd say the time. And when I was managing Middlesbrough and Bournemouth, I'd always say to like injuries, if it's a hamstring injury, take another 10 days. I'd never.
Would you?
I'd never push a player onto the pitch.
Is that because
no way? Because I know what it's like.
Because you rush yourself back, you think, when you're a player. So your approach as a manager is very different to your approach to what it was as a player.
I would never rush injuries.
Really?
I'd always take your time. Because that, just like Marvin said there, give maybe that extra 10 days. Or if you do play, you could be out for another 4 weeks. So I was always really, really strict on that. So
is the injuries, just to sort of wrap up this section with injuries, is that the one bit of your career you look back on with almost the most? Is regret the right word? Because it's out of your control a lot of it.
Yeah, it's out of my control.
Is that the thing that really grates on you the most from your career?
Yeah, that's the thing. When I look back, that's the thing that really hampered me. And I should have had a miles better career than I had. Should have been a lot better.
Because I think we look at your England caps as well. And I was surprised.
I didn't really have an England career, did I?
And how important was the support network at those periods? Like your family, friends, people around you, I imagine they had a big role to play when you were going through difficult times.
I didn't really tell them.
Did you not?
No. I'm one of them people who always keeps everything inside. So if I'm struggling or whatever, I don't tell anyone. I just try and deal with myself. And maybe it's a blind spot of mine. Maybe I do need to open up if you're struggling with something. You need to speak to people, but I kept it all in.
It's a very common thing for men that we had this discussion a lot now.
Yeah.
It's just a thing that keeps coming up, that as men we're just almost too proud to say, I'm not good. I'm struggling a bit and I need some support and I need some help.
I think with it as well is that I don't like to give people my problems.
Why not?
Because they worry.
Oh, you don't want to worry them with your problems? Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
So when I was like with injuries and stuff like that, I didn't want to go overboard about it. I'd say I get there, I'm doing okay, but I'd never want to put that strife on your parents for instance. I try and keep it in.
This is such a common thing you just alluded to. This is such a common theme that we have with this podcast, isn't it? Of the amount of players that have talked about a wide range of issues, but the common theme is that talking out seems to be so difficult for so many people. We've both spoken about it as well ourselves, haven't we?
Yeah, it's very much that case of, you know, I want to be the protector almost of everybody else. I want to just make sure everyone else is fine, and you know, I'm gonna not worry about putting my things onto someone else. I'll deal with it. It'll be okay. And then eventually, you know, it's just kind of, it just pushes you down. You know, you're always fighting against it. This thing that's always like, oh, you're not okay, and you're like, I'll be fine, and I'll kind of push through it.
And obviously your story is very well known. We've spoken about it a little bit, but I just wondered, when you did retire, for you, could you relate to what Jonathan was saying there, where you didn't want to burden people, you didn't want to talk about it all the time, but when you did tell your story, because I know it was a huge story when you retired at the age of 28, was that a real burden lifted for you, that everyone knew what you'd been through? And did that help by speaking out, that it meant that whenever anyone spoke to you, they knew what you were going through and they knew your story?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing was probably a few years before that, when I first spoke about it. I did an article, big interview speaking about it for the first time, and that was quite scary, to be honest, because I was just like, how's this gonna go down? Because I'm still playing at the time, and thought, you know, that thing of how people are gonna perceive me, how people are gonna look at me, are they gonna think I'm soft? Am I gonna lose that element of trust within my teammates, from management, from staff, etc.? And initially, that was my first thought, and then how conversations happened from then, it was just overwhelmingly positive. And it made me think, firstly, it's fine to talk about, but secondly, I had so many conversations with other people who were like very similar. You know, had a lot of similar struggles and felt like this in different times, whether it's as low or, you know, wherever they may have been in their life. And it's just such a common thing. So when you speak about it, it makes you feel better, because you realize that so many other people can relate, and you're not just the only person, you know?
That is the thing, isn't it? By speaking out, I mean, by you doing this, talking about injuries, I'm sure there's younger players, talented players, that are thinking, oh, it's so nice to hear. This is I can relate to this. It must help so many people. It's a common theme that we have by talking. It's actually a brave sign, isn't it, to talk about
that must have been so brave for Marvin to do that. I mean, I could never have done that, to be honest.
You could have done, I'm sure.
Yeah, but you've got to be so strong mentally to do that.
Did you remember when Marvin's story came out? It was a huge story, wasn't it? And it was
massive.
It was a very courageous thing to do, wasn't it?
That's what I mean. Talking about it is the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And full credit to do that.
Yeah. No, well said. I totally agree. We're going to talk about, I think I'm quite fascinated to know how it's changed you as a player to you as a manager, which we're going to talk about shortly. But obviously, still talking about your playing career, something very tragic happened to one of your former teammates when you're playing. We all remember Gary Speed, phenomenal player, and from everyone that spoke about him, a phenomenal person as well, by all accounts. Yeah. It must have been so difficult when you heard the news that he'd passed away and taken his own life. How difficult was that for you and your teammates? Because it was just such a horrible day for football and for everyone involved, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't. Gary, how could you just describe Speedo as a person? He was an incredible person. Like, he'd do anything for you. You could pick up the phone, he'd ring you out of the blue. He'd just ring you. I used to keep in contact with him on the phone and stuff. And then for that to happen, and it was like out of nowhere, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And I was devastated. I remember watching I think it was Newcastle playing that day, when I was watching. I think it was Shea Given and Craig Bellingham were they were crying. Stuff like, it was a sad time, real sad time. Because he'd have been a top manager, Speedo. Yeah. Because he had it all, really.
And did you say that he was always someone that would be there for other people, that would ring up the phone? And does that make you think that there was no warning signs at all? Or going back to what you were saying about how difficult it is for people to speak out, I imagine as a friend you wish he had said something, because obviously it was so tragic what happened.
Yeah, so tragic. I mean, he was really close with Shea Given, Steve Harper and Alan Shearer. So you'd have thought he might have said something to them. But we'll never know why he did it, what he was going through. That's the biggest thing. What was he going through to make him do that? And
had you ever had conversations about that with him? Or
no, no one ever knew. But to do that, so difficult, tragic.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the most tragic thing when we talk about mental health and depression and going to those extremes, is that we all, even small things that we just literally just spoke about there, like, we all just think we're okay. We can kind of just bottle up and cope with it, and we don't want to put anything onto anyone else. And you speak about him there so fondly, of him being the person for other people, as opposed to wanting other people to be that person for him. And that's, again, that's such a common thing for all of us, is that we all want to be that person for other people. So we all say, if you're struggling, just give me a shout, no qualms, just make sure you come to me and we can have a conversation. But how often do we say, I need to go and speak to you, or I need to go and speak to someone,
Yeah, it's so true that, and it is as you said there. So I could tell just by body language how tragic it was and how upset it's making you just reliving that. And I suppose there will be people listening to this that are in bad places and that are struggling. So, Marvin, you're the best person to answer this, really, because you do so much work with Calm, with the charity. What advice would you have on people that are listening? Because we don't want this to continue, do we? People need to speak out. We want to be a force for good with this podcast. So what advice would you have for people that might be struggling? Is it a case of just talking and having a support network and opening up? Is that key to all of this?
I mean, it definitely is key. I mean, talking is obviously one way we can communicate. Body language, you literally just mentioned there. Body language is a massive thing. There are things that we can pick up on that it's just there. You don't have to say anything. And it can be sending someone a text, a WhatsApp, or a message, or whatever it may be, that can communicate how you feel. I think that's one massive element. But of course, it's that feeling within of not worrying or not feeling shame or guilt or wanting to put your problems onto someone else, because in reality, everyone's going through something, whether it's big or small, however we interpret it, because what may be small to me may be massive to you, or these things are so common. So we should never feel like we can't have a conversation with someone or can't put some of our problems onto someone else, because we'd expect them to put them onto us and us to help. That's something that we probably all say every single day to someone that is close to us is, if you're not okay, make sure you let me know. Make sure you give me a shout. Make sure you call me. And we put that expectation out there for other people. But we also have to kind of try and learn about doing that ourselves as well, and not feeling bad or guilty for it. Because I think me personally, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate, is that initially you feel guilty about just speaking about things, because you think, well, someone else has got it worse. So you think, well, how can I be talking about not feeling good when I know that someone else isn't in the same circumstances as me, or has less than me, or is definitely worse off than me? But we all have different circumstances completely. So those are the two biggest things, is being able to communicate in whichever way works for you as a person, and then just not feeling guilty or feeling like you can't put anything onto someone else, because you speak about your parents. Parents are going to worry about you regardless. Everything could be going perfectly. They're still going to worry. They're still going to call you and say, "Oh, you haven't called me in a week," or "You're looking thin," or whatever it may be. So, things like that are so important. And I think the more reminders we can give people of that, I think the better.
Yeah, well said.
One suicide directly affects 135 people, leaving a lasting impact on family, friends, colleagues, neighbours and acquaintances. It's important to know that if you've lost someone to suicide, you're not alone. There are organisations such as Calm who can offer support if you're struggling.
Yeah, well said, Marvin. I think it's so important to talk, and obviously there's so much support available through Calm, which is Campaign Against Living Miserably. I know that you do a lot with the charity. It's a fantastic charity, so there is support available. Marvin, we've got to talk about Tottenham for a bit. Is that all right? We've got ex-Spurs player here.
Well, we have to, yeah.
You knew I was going to quote this in. Woody, I was there at Wembley Stadium when you scored the winning goal, man of the match, lifted the trophy. It's actually, I think, Marvin, you sort of reminded me of this, and that's actually Spurs' last trophy still.
That's a scary thing.
That is scary, isn't it? But I'm not going to dwell on that side of it. I want to talk about that day, because I had a great day out. I thoroughly enjoyed it. What was that like for you? Scoring the winning goal, man of the match, perfect day, wasn't it?
Incredible feeling. It was like, I remember scoring, I remember running back just thinking it was the best feeling I ever had.
Yeah.
The feeling of scoring that goal to win Spurs the cup was an incredible feeling, and all the stuff that I'd gone through with injuries and stuff like that, to really do that, I just felt like I'm back.
Did you?
I just felt I'm back. I've come over so many hurdles and worked so hard to get that opportunity. It was a great feeling.
That's one of the pinnacles of your career there. So it's nice to hear you talk about that as well, when you say you feel your England career wasn't what it could have been, your Real Madrid career wasn't what it could have been. You look at that, but no one can take that moment away from you, scoring a winning goal at Wembley with the trophy and a man of the match award. I mean, it's just
extremely proud to do it for a club like Spurs as well. But it was that feeling of I've done it, kind of thing.
Can I just say as well about that partnership? Spurs fans loved that partnership, Woodgate and Ledley King. But it was you touched on it earlier. Two players that didn't train all the time, that had injuries, but together it just worked, didn't it? And you had Michael Dawson as well. There's a lot of good players.
I think we both read the game really well, and we could both play with the ball. We'd be lucky as well to have two forwards in Berbatov and Keane. They were incredible partnerships, so it helps when you have that. But going into that game, we weren't favourites against Chelsea. Chelsea were favourites. Chelsea were a good team. But we thought on our day we could have beat anyone.
Yeah, it was a tight game, wasn't it, that one?
1-1. They went 1-0 up.
Yeah.
They went 1-0 up and 2-1 extra time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Great feeling.
I wanted to talk about how it changed from Jonathan Woodgate, the player, to Jonathan Woodgate, the manager, and how the dressing room environment's changed. Because you said earlier on in the podcast that it wasn't something to talk about if you kept things sort of bottled up. So how's football sort of developed? Because you must have seen a lot in the game.
I think when I was playing, if I was a 19-year-old kid or a 20-year-old kid and I went to see the manager at the time and said, I'm really struggling mentally, I think he'd just look at me and think I was probably soft.
Really? And is that any manager? You're not picking one manager?
No, I'm not.
That's just the mentality that existed there.
Yeah. I'm presuming.
Yeah.
By the way, but now it's a different ball game. If I had a player coming to me and said I've got problems, it'd be serious. You'd contact everyone. You'd get all the people at the club with experience. You'd make them known about it.
But that's a good thing, Marvin, isn't it? Yeah. It goes back to what you were saying, is that earlier, people struggling to talk. When you hear that from someone that's in the game as a player and a manager and how far it's gone, that's only going to help people talk more, isn't it?
I mean, you probably use your experiences, everything that you've been through, and think, I wouldn't want someone to be in that position. And do you take that on as a manager now, thinking, I don't want these players to have to feel how I felt at times?
Yeah. You just want players to be happy. That's why I want my players to come into training and be happy. And if they're not happy, come and speak to me. I wouldn't say I did it all the time, but I did if I was speaking to one of the players, I'd have a quiet word with them, say everything okay, life at home, things like that. Because if a player's lost form, what is it down to? Is it down to they're not preparing right, or is it down to the mentality, or are they having problems at home? Have they just split up with the girlfriend? Has one of the parents passed away, or a relative just passed away? Because you don't always know what's going through a player's mind. So it's important that you speak to your players and you check how they are. It's just little things like that.
So you must have seen the dressing room come a long way then. Was that a commonplace when you were a player then, that people just wouldn't talk about it? I mean, you didn't have chats about mental health, say, when you were a player. Was that the same with other players? It just wasn't spoken about?
No.
Not at all?
I didn't hear the word mental health since the last few years, to be honest with you. Back then, no one really knew, did they?
Yeah.
Just thought I'm feeling, I'm sad or I'm happy. That's how it was, but now, it's big now. It's really big.
You take that responsibility on yourself now as a manager to create that environment that people can come and speak to you and have that conversation.
Yeah, I always say to my players, my door's always open. Anything you need or you want from me as a manager, come and see me. If it's not football related, if it's personal stuff at home, come and see me. I've got experiences and different things, and you can talk to me. I'm not gonna judge you. I'll always try and help you.
Class, love that. And of course, one of the clubs we haven't spoken about, your boyhood club, Middlesbrough, went there as a player, managed there, obviously lived there, very fond of the area, the town, the people. Yeah. So getting the manager's job, that moment in your career, that must have been an incredibly proud moment.
Dream job. I was supposed to be going actually to the Champions League final, Liverpool Spurs on that day.
I remember it well.
I had to do the interview.
Wow.
So my missus went with my son. But yeah, dream job. I mean, it was gonna turn that job down. It's your hometown club. Didn't go to plan. Didn't work. I got a lot of abuse by the fans. Probably one over there.
He's just looking at
online
producer Paul, who's behind the camera.
I'm not intellectually clever. Quite basic, and I'd get called a hell of a lot of names. Fake, he's this, he's that. You can't talk properly. That's what I'd get.
Does that make it harder because it's your own fans, it's your club, you played there, you supported them, you lived there? Does that make it extra tough?
Yeah, it does. And I lost a bit of confidence, to be honest with you.
As a person?
Yeah. I didn't have.
Not as a manager, but just generally
just as a person. And I've started, what's helped me, I've started doing a lot of the radio work now for 5 Live, and that's really helped me get confident again.
So that knocked your confidence more than sort of playing and stuff?
Yeah, that was tough. That was tough. And you got a lot of abuse online. Do you know what I mean? If you shot so much mud, some of it sticks, isn't it? So,
yeah. So great job that you got. Obviously, dream job you described it as. Didn't quite go to plan. And I suppose, was it tough with the whole COVID period as well? Was that a time that COVID was the first lockdowns were coming in? It was just after that, was it?
It was the start of it.
Just the start,
the start of it. I remember we played Charlton, beat them 1-0. I remember previous to that, though, I had a meeting with the chairman and my staff and chief exec, and he said, I've got one thing to say to you, Jonathan. And he said, if we get relegated, you're getting us up. And if we get promoted, so if we stay in the league, we're going to rebuild. There's 7 players out of contract, and you're going to rebuild it. Perfect. Anyway, went into COVID, come out of COVID, got beat by Swansea 3-0. 2 days later, I'm sacked.
You lost your job.
Yeah.
When you got told you were no longer going to manage the football club, how difficult a moment was that for you in your career?
Yeah, really difficult. I was devastated. You know, it's your team you supported as a kid, played for, and then I was the manager, and it was the perfect job. Absolutely, but telling my kids was the hardest thing, because my son just burst out crying because he was a Middlesbrough fan. That was really, really tough. I was embarrassed as well. I was embarrassed that I'd lost my job so early on in my management reign. I mean, if your first job doesn't go to plan, it's highly unlikely you're going to get a second one. Luckily enough, I did, but just that feeling of, not being able to do the job which you know you could have done.
Yeah, and probably wanting to do it so much because it's your club, and any job that comes after that, it's not Middlesbrough for you. So that must have been particularly tough.
Yeah, but like looking at all the players you were going to sign, trying to build, looking at next season of like 7 players out of contract, what you can buy and what you can bring in. The chairman said he was going to back us in the summer. Didn't get to that point, but yeah, I was absolutely gutted. It was a drive home that I can't remember getting home.
Really?
I cannot remember getting home. I was just on autopilot thinking, what has happened here?
And it's interesting you say the difficult part telling your son, because these are things that we don't even think of on the outside. You just hear you've lost your job, new manager comes in, you go to Bournemouth. You don't think of the day-to-day in terms of how your son feels and everything like that. And
it was a blessing in disguise. It was COVID at the time, and he wasn't at school.
Right.
But I'd have been terrified of him going to school, maybe getting bullied or whatever. Your dad's lost it, your dad's this, your dad's that. Because all the kids are Borough fans, aren't they? And kids these days can be quite cruel. So I was quite fortunate that he was off school at the time.
So how did you sort of overcome that? You said it's one of the sort of lowest parts of your career you've spoken about before. You said it was the dream job, speaking to your son who was crying. How do you overcome that and put yourself in a positive state of mind?
You dust yourself down. And I just think to myself, you can't cry about it now. You've got to get on with it. It's only you can move on to the next level. You've got to have the right mentality now. You write down what you did wrong, what was good, what was bad, what could you do different, little certain things, and then it's gone. That's how I try to deal with things. It's done. It's water under the bridge. You've got to move on from it.
Do you feel you did have it hard there, considering all that you said COVID was just starting at that point? You had players out of contract. It was more than just managing on the football pitch. There was a lot of issues you had to deal with. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of issues, but you still need to do better as a manager. There's a lot of things that I could have done better, and a lot of things with, like you say, with 7 out of contract, senior players. Quite a few injuries to good players, and having to get 18 million back in the kitties, not easy. But you still need to do better.
It's amazing how honest you look back in your career. Like you were saying, your England career, you described it as almost non-existent, even though you played 8 times for your country. Real Madrid, you played for Real Madrid, but you said, what if? You're looking at Middlesbrough, said you should have done better. Do you think you're quite harsh on yourself? Because in this country, you are considered one of the centre-backs in Premier League era. Lots of former players we speak about talk about you with such glowing praise. Do you feel that you are quite tough on yourself?
I think I am, yeah. But I like high standards. That's what it boils down to, having high standards. When my son's playing football, I try not to be too harsh on him, to be honest. I try to be more positive with him.
Right.
But yeah, that's just me as a person. I've always tried to have high standards. I've always tried to be the best as I possibly can be. That's how I look at it. I've done as well as I could, and that wasn't good enough in the end.
Do you enjoy managing?
Love it.
You want to
love it.
Get back into?
No, I love it. Yeah, I love being a manager. I love coaching players. I love dealing with players. I love the pressure.
I love the pressure.
I love the pressure, yeah.
Do you?
Really.
And in terms of pressure on match day, training days, just
every
all
day,
of it?
Every day.
Really?
If you do a lot of media as well, that's the only...
You don't like that bit?
Yeah, I'm getting better at it.
I think it's all right. It's been a great pod, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm getting better at it.
I would never have said otherwise.
No, I wouldn't. You didn't strike me as someone who doesn't like the media.
No, I'm getting better.
I wouldn't
say I don't like it.
Right.
I said you do a lot of it.
Yes. Yeah,
it's relentless. It's relentless.
4 cameras in front of you. No, yeah. There's a lot of people who really are. It is relentless, isn't it?
It is relentless.
And how does it compare to playing? Because obviously we speak to so many players and managers that just say nothing compares to playing. But it's interesting hearing you talk about management in such glowing terms, like you're just itching to get back in.
When you win a game, it's the best feeling.
Better than a player?
For me.
Why?
Because you've done the job. You're the manager of that group of players.
Yeah.
It makes you proud. Like when you win on a Saturday when you're a player, yeah, brilliant, yeah, done. Next
Faces,
game.
yeah.
Yeah, whatever, yeah. Tall trees. And then as a manager, it's the best. It's like pure euphoria when the whistle goes and everyone says, "Oh, you need to be same if you lose, if you win." That's tough.
So I imagine if it's more of a buzz when you win as a manager, is it harder when you lose as a manager as well?
When you lose as a manager. So just say if my wife's got friends around or whatever.
Yeah.
She knows that I ain't going to be sociable.
Really?
So
Sorry a minute. But what if your wife's got mutual friends around? No. So you've got a wife and a husband. You're both mates with them. They're coming around.
No.
You've just lost a game. How does that Saturday night go?
Horrendous. No, seriously, horrendous.
Really?
Yeah.
So what happens? Talk me through it.
I don't talk to them. I'll walk through the kitchen and walk into the room. I won't. I just like.
So if me and Marv are mutual friends with you and your wife, and we came around.
They'd know straight away.
Really?
They'd know straight away.
Wow.
That's how it is. But then you've got to go into training the next day.
Yeah.
You've got to be a drama teacher. Yeah. You've got to walk around with a smile on your face, positivity, even though inside that must be tough. It's tough, but you've got to do it, haven't you?
It's on your shoulders, isn't it? Like being the person, because as you said, it probably feels more so because you're the one that's driving that. So when it's not going well, it must be tough to then turn it around and go, I have to find a way to make everybody else pretend at least that it's okay.
That's exactly what you've got to do.
And you can't go to faces either as a manager, can you?
What's that?
You can't go to faces either as a manager. You can't even enjoy it, but he's not really selling management to you, Marvin. You think it's a lot of? It seems like from the outside, there's a lot of pressure on the management side, doesn't it?
It is, but it sounds like it's what you're made for.
Yeah.
It sounds like what you are most passionate about. Just the way you speak in comparison even to playing. You don't. It feels a lot more. You feel a lot more freer when you're speaking about it.
You need the right opportunity as well. So at Middlesbrough didn't go to plan. Bournemouth had done a good job at Bournemouth.
Yeah.
So then you just have to wait for the right one.
Yeah, let's talk about Bournemouth as well, because obviously Middlesbrough, you had that attachment as your club. Bournemouth, you went in, did a really good job at Bournemouth. Seems to have a good relationship with the fans, but again, you had all the COVID issues were there. So was that again a job that I imagine you thoroughly enjoyed, but there was a lot of circumstances that were tricky to manage as well?
Yeah, well, I didn't enjoy it at the start because Jason Tindall brought me down, and 2 days later he gets sacked, and I'm asked to step in. I didn't enjoy that at all, and that was difficult. Didn't know any of the staff. So you can imagine I've just gone down, didn't know anyone. So I had to get to know them quick, I had to get to know the personalities, not just the coaches, secretaries, chefs, kit men.
Yeah.
Because you have to, with a football club, you've got to manage everyone.
Yeah.
You've got to manage everyone. So that was interesting, to be honest with you, but enjoyed it towards the end, really, really loved it.
And how tough was that, obviously, logistically, just from the map? You
I
and your
couldn't have
family
gone any
based
further away.
No, exactly. You and family based in Middlesbrough. It's the opposite end of the country. So did they come down with you? Were you on your own?
They
how
come
was
down
that?
for the first 6 weeks.
Fine.
But then I found that really difficult being away from my kids and my wife. That was tough. My son was been 8, my daughter had been 4.
Wow.
And I wanna spend time with my family.
Yeah.
I don't want to be away all the time. And I really did. I struggled with that.
How did you deal with that? How did you sort of overcome that?
When I got a day off, I'd drive home.
Would you?
Yeah, because I'm missing that much. Yeah. I love being with my kids. I really do.
Yeah.
And I want to create a life. I want it to remember me. Do you know what I mean? And all the good things that we can do together. I want to be part of their childhood growing up.
Yeah, I love that. But when you say drive home, that in
5
one
hours.
day, 5 hours there, 5 hours back.
Yeah.
So you're not spending, I imagine,
but you're there, aren't you?
Time.
You're there for a good amount of time. So after the game on a Saturday, I'd drive home. So you'd have all day Sunday, and I'd drive down Monday morning.
It's a lot of things to deal with, throughout COVID in general. Because you're trying to get up to speed with knowing the staff, the chef, the players, as well as trying to help them play better. You're trying to deal with a lot of what's going on with your family and not even being close enough to be able to see them. How do you manage all of that?
It's a tough scenario. You get on the first time as much as you can, and you keep yourself busy. That's the one I should just keep myself busy all the time. What I did enjoy about COVID was the masks, because I could walk about Bournemouth and no one would come over to you. So you have your mask on, don't you? Just walk around.
No one would recognise you.
You're not used to doing it, are you?
No, it's true.
I'm not used to doing it, so get your mask on. Try and just keep yourself as busy as possible.
I think that's good
Take your
advice.
mind
As well,
off it.
keeping yourself busy is always
Routine.
Routine is important.
Routine's key.
And physical exercise and things like that are important. Can I ask you about the COVID situation? Because I was going to so many football clubs with various interviews, and obviously the protocol was excellent. There was remote interviews. There was players were told what to do, and it was handled very well. And it was a completely unknown situation at the start, very difficult for everyone to deal with. But for a manager, because I imagine for the players, you just get told when you're allowed in, when you're not, when you're having a meeting over Zoom, when you're training. But for a manager, you've got to organise all of that in a new environment. I mean, I imagine you were having chats over Zoom with players. There was areas that you couldn't go to in certain parts of the stadium. How difficult was that?
Well, you had to be only in a certain area of the training ground. You couldn't even eat there. This was at Middlesbrough when it first started. You couldn't even eat at the training ground. The players that I get ready in the car, you had to like wipe down all the mannequins, all the balls and everything, because everyone was just going crazy about this COVID. And then to deal with like players, like foreign players, how were they feeling? There was a lad over from France, Harold McCudie. How was he dealing with it? It can't have been easy. He's a 20-year-old kid over in England.
Without his family.
Yeah. On his own. How did he deal with that? He had no friends. So
how do you approach that as manager? Is that an instant where you say man management is so important that the dressing room's come a long way? You say come and speak to me. You just try and do all you can outside of football. Because I imagine a lot of your conversations probably weren't to do with football. It was about, like you're saying, mental health. How are you dealing with the logistics?
That was the biggest thing. How are these players' mentalities? How are they dealing with the situation? Because you can imagine it. a young kid coming over from France must have found it tough. Or Dijksteel, he's from Holland. Must have been really tough for them, but you speak to them on the phone, and not all footballers are forthcoming with a lot of information, are they? Do you know what I mean? So you've got to try and prise out of them how you really feeling.
Yeah.
Did your experiences going abroad help in that situation when you're like, I kind of understand how they're feeling because you were a young person who went to Madrid, didn't know the language, didn't know people, and you were
totally
away from the group because of the fact that you were injured.
Totally, and that was one thing that when the players do come over, I did try, like with Harold, I did try and speak to him often. And even though he could speak a little bit of English, and obviously my French isn't great, so I used to get Rudy Gestede to translate for me.
Did you?
So, how is he, Rudy? Any problems? Does he need anything off me?
Yeah.
Does he need any help with anything?
Yeah.
But I knew how they were feeling.
Yeah.
Because it is when you're away from your family and abroad and stuff, it is difficult.
And I suppose, is that the toughest part of management now? Is you alluded to back then, and you didn't single anyone out, but it wasn't spoken about, things like that. Whereas I imagine to be a manager now, you go to all the training courses, get all your badges. So as a football coach, manager, you've got all the experience to manage on the football pitch. But actually, there must be a lot to deal with younger players, with social media, with mental health, with issues of discrimination that we've seen. All of these things that we're trying to improve on within football and in society as well. And as a manager, probably a lot of these things aren't taught to you in terms of how you handle them. Is that tricky as a manager? I imagine there's a lot to deal with.
A lot to deal with. And like you said, it's not just the pitch stuff. Most of your time, at times, is dealt with off the field stuff and problems players are facing or what's happening to the family. But you're not just dealing with all the players, you're dealing with the staff as well. How do you manage your physios? How do you manage your kit men? The chefs, how are you going to manage them? How are they feeling? Little things like that. But as well as that, when you look at kit men, they're so important. Really important. Because everyone goes in the kit room. And all the players are in there. So anything they'd say in the kit room, make sure you come back to me if it's important. I don't want you grassing up on them. Make sure it comes back to me if it's important. And I need to know about it.
That's interesting. Did you find that kit men were an integral part of dressing room duty?
They're the life of most football clubs.
Really?
You know, because it's just a safe space, isn't it? And I think that's the way that football's changing now anyways, that just the dressing room, the whole club training room environment is a safe space. Because as you alluded to before, football, you can have this conversation in football before, because if it did get back to the manager, how's that going to be if it got out to one of the lads? It's almost like a secret you want to keep. So that's where football has come on such a long way, and as a manager, it's probably a lot. I mean, it's a lot of pressure on you because you're dealing with so many different people, so many different elements,
different personalities.
Yeah.
How do you do it? So you've got a young boy from London, and you've got a young boy from the northeast. They'll have different personalities, but you've got to get to know them and you've got to bring them together. I'll tell you a good one, Jed Spence.
Yeah.
He's done really well.
Yeah.
My first day in the job, he knocks on the door. All right, Jed. He goes, Gaffer, someone's nicked me trainers. That was my first day.
Really?
Yeah. Knocked on my door and said, someone's nicked my trainers. I was like, go and get a pair, Jed. It's just like that type of mentality, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he was a lovely boy.
Yeah.
Real good kid. Come from London.
Yeah.
Come to the northeast. But a good kid. But then different to a Dale Fry, who was born and bred in Middlesbrough. Yeah. So how do you deal with the personalities of both?
So Dale Fry isn't the kind of player that would knock on your door saying,
no.
Someone's nicked my trainers.
So it's different personalities. How do you deal with these players and how do you put this squad together and this team?
Must take a lot of time as well.
It takes a lot of thought.
Yeah.
Of how you're going to deal with different people and different players and what pushes the buttons, what you don't need to do.
Do you think you mentally are in a different place to when you was a player? Because if you're saying you can knock on my door whenever you want to your players, if they're coming to you with problems, I'm not going to ask what players have come with individual problems, obviously, because that's between you and the players. But you said in your playing career, it just wasn't spoken about. So do you look at life in a different way now, that if you were struggling, you would open up more because the management side has taught you that side?
Yeah, I think that's important about opening up and speaking about your problems, because a lot of people have got problems, probably in this room now.
Yeah.
When you look around, there'll be someone in the room who's really struggling. So it's important that people do come out and talk about the problems. Footballers for sure, because they will have problems, they'll have pressures, they'll have stresses, they'll have different areas in their life that at the minute aren't going to plan. So to come out and talk about problems that they are having is only going to be good.
I've got to say, I don't know if you agree, Marvin, but you seem like you've got such a passion for management, and we speak to players that love their playing career, but it seems like you are just itching to get back into it? Is there?
Like I say, it's got to be.
It's got to be the right job.
It has to be the right job.
Is there a level that you look at in terms of where you'd want to get back?
I'll go League 2, League 1. No problem. Yeah. I'm not going to go to the Premier League. That's for sure. Yet.
Yet. And is that something that do you have a level that you'd want to go in, or a time frame, or is it all about the right job?
It's all
at the right
about
time?
the right job, right time. Let's see.
Watch this space. There we go. And I suppose just finally, just talking about the resilience that you had as a player, as a manager, the things that you've overcome with injuries and moving abroad at a young age. Just really, just to end the podcast, what your advice would be for people that you just alluded to there. A lot of people might be struggling with things we don't know. What your advice would be to people listening to this podcast?
Just to come out and speak to people and put your point of view across. If you're really struggling about anything, I really get bad migraines, really bad migraines, yeah. And it gets you down because I can get them in I could get maybe 3 migraines in a week, and it'd get you down because you're bedridden for those days. Yeah. Little things like that that can get to you. But yeah, just come out, speak, let people know how you're feeling and how you can get better as a person. Just little things.
It's great advice. Marvin, brilliant to have Jonathan on the podcast, wasn't it?
Massively, yeah.
Absolute legend. Always a pleasure to welcome a former Spurs. And I think top player we know, but top person, I think your words will help so many people. Thank you so much for coming on, mate.
Cheers so much.
Thank you.